All right, we are back for another amazing conversation. This is Drew from StableDash. We've been having an awesome day here at the Stablecoin Conference powered by Bitso Business. And thank you so much to Agora for getting us off the ground with this. It's been a really fun day. We've had some awesome conversations. It's funny. StableDash Live is sponsored by Agora, built for global institutions moving money at the speed of the internet. You can learn more at agora.finance. It's a time warp sitting here with you, and I'm excited to catch up on the updates since we last spoke in a very similar booth last year. Yeah. I'm really glad that you guys, I think when I was meeting with you or Imran last time, you guys kind of teased the 2026 event. So we're here, we're back.
World Cup, wink, wink.
World Cup. Okay, so Ben, quickly give a little intro of what you're doing and how it's positioned, and I'm really excited to hear I think when we first met, it was very new. So I'm excited to hear the updates.
Yeah. Ben Reid, Head of Stablecoins at Juno, which is part of the Bitso Group of companies. It's the issuer arm of Bitso. So Head of Stablecoins means I lead our issuance business of MXNB, which is our Mexican peso-pegged stablecoin. And we also are involved in a Brazilian real stablecoin consortium called BRL1.
Cool.
And I lead our involvement in that as well.
Amazing. Okay, so it's been an awesome year up and to the right with stablecoins generally. We've gotten some really great regulation in the US. We've had continued investment in infrastructure, and a lot of the companies that, a lot of them were here last year, but, more up and to the right, it seems like. What is from your perspective, how are you feeling about Juno specifically? I think when we first met, it was fairly new. Give us the kind of state of the union as it stands right now.
Yeah. Look, I don't have to rehash what's happened over the past year in terms of broad stablecoin adoption. That to date still has largely been, talking for the industry as a whole, a USD-centric phenomenon. Mm-hmm. But I observe that last year at this time, Genius Act, the ink was still not dry on the Genius Act. Circle had just went public. We were riding a wave of certainly excitement about stablecoins. It was the stablecoin summer, the end of the stablecoin summer. But everybody who was excited, I say everybody, that's
everybody in this room.
Everybody in this room already was had their plan, but everybody writ large was just getting their stablecoin strategy set. And for by and large, that meant dollar stablecoin strategy. And certainly we expect that non-dollar stablecoins would ride that wave. There would sort of be, okay, I got my dollar stablecoin strategy set, and now I do have a business in Mexico, or I do have a business in Brazil. And now that I'm comfortable with the dollar, because that was the most important thing for me to do first, and that's also where I got the regulatory green light, now I start to look further afield, and then non-dollar stablecoins sort of benefit in the wake of that. And I'm happy to report I think that's happening. And two things that I observe happening right now, I'd be curious to see if you think the same. Something that I think is interesting is that in the past 3 weeks, the number of dollar stablecoin issuers, I'm talking Western Union, MoneyGram, SoFi, Zelle, the list goes on. There's a few more. Those conversations internally, and thinking about those boardrooms, those probably started the day after Genius Act, and it just makes sense that it takes a while for that to hit. And so that's not something specifically related to MXNB or Juno, but it's just an observation of where we are in the general timeline.
Yeah.
Is that the big companies now, that would take a long time. They are to the point where they're issuing their own dollar stablecoins. It'll be very interesting to see how this plays out when we have this proliferation of dollar stablecoins that do all have individually a potential right to win, right? All of them have an interesting, unique distribution angle.
Yeah.
But all that does is it just sort of furthers the maturity of the dollar stablecoin space. And what it means too is that there's no shortage of companies that are very comfortable at this point with dollar stablecoins. It doesn't mean they're done with it. They're doing something, but they're now very comfortable with it. And we're starting to see many more knocks on the door saying, okay, I need a peso stablecoin.
Yeah.
And that's what's sort of finally happening. I've always believed that non-dollar stablecoins need to, ride a wave. A wave needs to come. We need to be prepared to ride the wave. And so a lot of what we've been doing with MXNB and Juno has been positioning ourselves. I use the analogy of surfing, right? If you're surfing, there's no waves, you're not going to surf. You're sort of dependent upon a wave, but it's not just the wave comes and you're riding it. You need to be angled the right way. You need to be in shape to pop up on the board and ride it, right?
Yeah.
But if the wave doesn't come, none of that matters. So it's sort of like that. We're prepping for the wave, and I think the wave is coming. It's the cliche. It's still early. It is, but the wave I think is finally coming because of the maturity-ish. Still early there too, but maturity-ish of the dollar stablecoin space is. And that the kind of institutions that are now getting comfortable with that are now starting to knock on our door. So we're very happy about that. And we've been positioning ourselves, the positioning ourselves and the training to pop up on the board are things like, we got MXNB regulated. It's a license issuance from El Salvador. And part of the reason for that, because people are like, well, that's weird. It's a Mexican peso stablecoin, but there is no Mexican regulatory framework today that you can issue a stablecoin under. There's one that's being proposed. In fact, tomorrow, we'll hear from the senator that's proposed it. He's speaking on stage tomorrow. I'm very excited to hear that.
Awesome.
But it's essentially Mexico's Genius Act is on the docket. It's being reviewed right now. But as of now, there is no framework that you can issue a stablecoin under. And we wanted to make MXNB, our goal is to make it the de facto on-chain peso. Some of that comes from trust. Some trust comes from being simply issued by a Bitso company, and the trust in that the Bitso brand has built up over the past 13 years. But being regulated is another angle on that as well. And so this is all our positioning to sort of ride this wave, because now when companies say, okay, we're good with our dollar stablecoin, we need a peso stablecoin. Okay, what's our options? Oh, there's one that's issued by Bitso. It's regulated. Oh, okay, like game over. Let's knock on their door. And that's kind of what's starting to happen. So very happy about that.
Yeah. So I like the kind of metaphor of surfing and riding the wave. What are some of these actions that you right now are doing to position yourself and start like paddling in the water? Like, what are some of these right now in this moment specific, like regulation's awesome. I'm excited for that. Assuming that's like kind of positive, like what actions or next steps are you guys are going to be taking to, continue to ride this wave effectively? What's top of mind as you kind of approach the next few quarters?
So one of the things is simply trust by distribution and by partners that are like large partners that are starting to adopt MXNB as like their peso stablecoin, and the signaling that comes from that. Now, without spilling the beans on some coming partnerships that are going to launch or saying too much, I'll give some examples because people ask this. I'm sure this might be a question you would ask, is like, well, what are the use cases you're seeing for peso stablecoin? And I always have to explain, there's a misconception where people are like, it must be cross-border payments because so much of this conference is cross-border payments. It's not. Maybe at some point, but there's not really a good reason why you'd sub in a peso stablecoin for a dollar stablecoin for cross-border payments. Today, most cross-border payments start and end life as fiat. The stablecoin in the middle is kind of abstracted away. The fact that it's a dollar stablecoin actually doesn't matter that much. It's just the most liquid stable currency, and it tends to be pegged to one side of that transfer. But even in cross-border transfers that don't involve a dollar, usually a dollar stablecoin is involved because it's just the most liquid. So it's all about liquidity, and I don't expect MXNB to have liquidity to rival USDT or USDC anytime soon. So it's not payments. The Mexican financial system, whether it's cash or cards, like generally works well enough to pay at a merchant. I don't expect your average Mexican to pay for their coffee with MXNB. There's certainly an institutional side and a business side, and that's kind of its own beast. That's a focus area for us. But what we see right now is a lot of interest from platforms. So think crypto exchanges, think fintech platforms that have said, we need a peso stablecoin because we want that to be our digital peso. Like, we're not licensed to hold fiat pesos. We need to on-ramp people to our platform, whatever it is, exchange, fintech platform, neobank, but we can't hold pesos. We're not a bank and we don't have the necessary licenses, but we can hold a digital asset. And so we need to on-ramp. We want to on-ramp people into a digital peso, and that's MXNB. To give a more concrete example, there's a global exchange that in the very near future here will be connecting their fiat ramps of MXN, so that when you load MXN onto the exchange, they can't hold the MXN, and so what happens today is you load MXN and you're immediately forced to convert to USDC or Bitcoin. You're forced to buy something. There's FX cost to that. You change your mind, you don't get back 100% of what you just put in. And they've realized that the best user experience is to on-ramp people into pesos, but instead of immediately converting to a US dollar denominated digital asset. They just go right into a digital peso 1-to-1. You on ramp 1,000 pesos, you're holding 1,000 MXNB, 1,000 digital pesos. I share all that. I don't want getting back to your question, which is like, how else are you positioning yourself to ride the wave? If we have a global multiple, actually it should be in the near future, multiple, call it top 5 global crypto exchanges that in Mexico are on-ramping users. Anybody who's on-ramping can on-ramp pesos right into MXNB. And from there, by the way, you can go to whatever you want within the exchange. You want to buy MXNB directly to Bitcoin or to Pepe or Fartcoin, you can do whatever you want because they kind of abstract without getting too technical, that you can still trade to whatever you want from there. It just feels like you're using a digital peso to buy whatever other assets you want.
Yeah. So the key unlock here is that the digital nature of this product being on chain is able to give access to the functional use of the peso without the regulatory or like typical requirements that they would have to if they actually were custodying pesos for their users.
Peso, it's pegged to the peso, but you don't have to custody fiat. We're the licensed entity that's custody.
So it's the function of the asset without the liability of the custody requirements.
Yeah.
You guys are taking that on.
And so, yeah, I mean, as the issuer, yep, we take the pesos, we give a digital asset, and then they can use it as a digital peso. I share all that. That's a roundabout way of saying when large crypto exchanges, and that's just one example, are using MXNB as their digital peso, that's an example of positioning ourselves to ride the wave, is the signaling that comes from, like these large entities. And it's not just crypto companies that are in the works of using the MXNB in this way, that when the next company comes around, when the next bank comes around and says, all right, we need a peso stablecoin, which should we use? It's not only, there's MXNB, it's issued by Bitso. Okay, that's a trusted company. It's licensed. And large company X, Y, and Z are already using it at scale. Like, why would we mess around with anything else? It's sort of a foregone conclusion. So we're doing things like that to kind of ride the wave. The wave still needs to come. I think the wave is coming, but we're just trying to position ourselves in this way that's a trust angle of positioning.
Yeah, I mean, trust is something that I think Bitso as a brand has earned over many, many years. And it's great that the adoption, it sounds like, of a product like this can be faster and more effective because of that trust that the Bitso brand has. What are the key for Juno specifically, or MXNB? Like, what are some key misconceptions or things that maybe the market is commonly thinking about that you find aren't true? Or like the use for pesos and cross-border payments was a great one. Is there anything like for Juno as a company or part of Bitso that people maybe get wrong or may not be thinking about?
I mean, the thing that I run into a lot, and this is totally understandable, is that when people ask about what use cases we see today or what use cases we're planning for, or we expect will be the drivers of MXNB or non-dollar stablecoins generally, is that they project what they think about with dollar stablecoins and they overlay it over a non-dollar stablecoin. So payments is an example. Must be payments, right? Cross-border payments. Or, so are people we're expecting them to hold that for inflation hedge, right? In high inflation countries, and the simple answer is no, they would just use a dollar stablecoin. If you're in a hyperinflation country, you just use a dollar stablecoin. There's zero reason why you should use a peso stablecoin today because it's mildly inflationary to the dollar. You should just use a dollar stablecoin. No, we already talked about the cross-border payments angle. So that's the misconception, is just people think what they've read about with stablecoins. And for a lot of people, stablecoins is a euphemism for dollar stablecoins. There's not really like, I guess stablecoins could be in other currencies. Like that's an epiphany for some people. And I get it. It's a very dollar-centric stablecoin world right now. But then when they realize, I guess it makes sense that there's stablecoins pegged to other currencies, then they say, well, what are the use cases? And they take the dollar stablecoin use cases and they overlay it and they say, is it those things? And the answer, again, is no. So another use case that is unique to pesos is on-chain credit. So we're announcing here, technically tomorrow, that we have an MXNB Morpho vault live. So it's the first MXN-denominated on-chain credit lend borrow vault on Morpho, on blue chip lending protocol Morpho. It's in partnership with Morpho and Base, curated by Gauntlet, which is one of the top risk curators in the space.
I was just talking to Nicholas and Matt before this, and they were kind of hinting at this a little bit. That's great. I mean, you got the dream team going.
Yeah. And there's
But credit, you said, is the kind of use case.
I mean, Morpho is lending and borrowing. It is peer-to-peer lending and borrowing. And there's a unique, that is something, peso-denominated lending and borrowing in Morpho or Aave or Fluid or one of these other protocols, that is something only a peso stablecoin can do. You can't have peso-denominated lending and borrowing with a dollar stablecoin. That's dollar-denominated lending and borrowing. You might say, okay, well, why does that matter? Well, for one, the rates in the Mexican market, which there should be correlation to, are just vastly different. The yield rate is higher and the borrow rate is much higher, and there's a much higher structural spread between lending and borrowing rates in the Mexican market. So what you would expect the behavior to be in a permissionless lend borrow vault that's denominated in pesos is you'd expect there to be some correlation to the fiat market, but actually compress the spreads because it's essentially peer-to-peer lending in a protocol like that. And that is an interesting and in my view, potentially the sleeping superpower of non-dollar stablecoins. Because if that thesis doesn't just extend to pesos, it extends to real and it extends to Colombian pesos and Argentinian pesos. Like it extends to any other currency, and in particular in markets where there are structurally high spreads in the market, meaning the amount you can earn on your excess capital and the amount it costs to borrow in a basic collateralized loan. In the US, that spread is 3.5% on T-bills, give or take, and 6 to 7% on a car loan. It's about 3.5 percentage points wide is like what I would call like the lend borrow spread. In most LatAm countries, it's 10 percentage points plus wide.
Wow.
There's structurally higher spreads. And if you put one of those currencies, a fiat-backed stablecoin, in a permissionless lend borrow and you let people lend peer-to-peer, there's no reason why the spread should remain 10 percentage points wide. They should collapse. But you need a currency pegged in the local, a stablecoin pegged in the local currency to have that phenomenon happen. And we'll see what happens. I think it will be an interesting test, but we're very excited to do that. And that's another example of something that we see both demand for as well as we're investing in, and has nothing to do with a dollar stablecoin or dollar stablecoin use case. I mean, don't get me wrong, dollar stablecoins are hugely used on Morpho. It's the vast majority of on-chain lending and borrowing is dollar denominated today. We think that it's a sleeping superpower of non-dollar stablecoins to unlock these markets and actually.
Yeah. I mean, it's really what it is like tokenized markets for the world. Like we're thinking about, like stablecoins have really become this like wedge, whether for users or businesses, to start thinking about how capital markets and things like putting money on chain or putting different structured products on chain, like there's so many flavors that this can take. And I've never actually had someone outline that so clearly to me. It sounds like what you're experiencing with pesos is something that for credit markets specifically, you see that happening for other markets as well. Like this is a playbook, or this is a theme that could apply to other countries or other types of businesses.
As launch goes, we see it as a potential playbook, and we hope that additional non-dollar stablecoin issuers follow suit. There's a little bit of activity in on-chain credit that's non-dollar denominated, mostly euro denominated, and there's a little bit around the edges of like Hong Kong dollar and stuff like that. But it is largely an untapped opportunity, and we think a potentially very big opportunity because again, U.S. has the tightest structural spreads essentially in the world, maybe with Europe essentially the same, but almost everywhere else in the world, for a variety of reasons, for regulation, for bank oligopolies, for rent-seeking intermediaries, for a variety of reasons, not all of them nefarious, there are usually structurally higher spreads in almost every other country. And that, in that case, you can then let people lend and borrow to each other in effectively a peer-to-peer manner governed by smart contract code. You potentially compress those spreads. So we'll see what happens. But yes, we think this isn't just a Mexican phenomenon.
Yeah, and there's compression that will happen, but I'd imagine there's also like a lot of lucrative margin in the process of doing that for the people who are helping bring that to life. Like that seems like an opportunity in my mind that spread is so wide. Like it'll go down, but like imagining
it certainly is an opportunity. We're focused right now on utility, utility that this can open, and then the revenue should follow. But yeah.
Is this a Bitso business opportunity for these other markets in your mind, or do you see this more as like a kind of an invite for other stablecoin issuers to partner with you guys? Like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I think you mean Juno. Juno is the issuer of MXNB, and is this a Juno opportunity to issue stablecoins in these other markets? I think is what you're getting
at.
Yeah, I mean, we're open to partnerships. We have our hands full with our Mexican peso and Brazilian real stablecoins. Never say never,
but it wouldn't be shocking if we started to see other things.
Yeah.
Interesting. Maybe we'll be here again next year, and who knows what we'll be talking about. I know this was brief, but Ben, it's always great to talk with you, and maybe we'll hopefully we'll both be at that the World Cup game tomorrow night. That'll be fun.
Cheers, you there.
All right, that was our exclusive conversation live here in Mexico City with Ben Reid from Juno. Thank you for the time, man. It's always a pleasure. Cool. Keep it rolling. Quick break. We'll be right back.